So I'm Angela Allyn, and I grew up just outside of Chicago, and I had this amazing dance teacher in high school, Suzanne Wente at New Trier, and she got me, you know, being a wild teenager, taking the CTA down to take classes at Lou Conti, and then going to shows at Lynx Hall and Moming and taking classes and workshops. And then when I went away to school in South Bend, I was importing dancers and choreographers from Chicago. And then we'd drive back in blizzards to go to the old auditorium theater showcases where they would bring everybody in to do, like, you know, their little tour to whatever. And when Joffrey came through, and when Martha Graham did her performance, and when Paul Taylor was there. So, and I kept taking summer classes up at the Dance Center of Columbia College with them. And then I moved to New York and would occasionally come through, but then in 1985 I moved back because the board of the newly formed Chicago Dance Coalition was looking for a first executive director. So I came back to run that, and the dance company that I had founded in New York kind of foundered without me there. So in 1985 I reformed the Abiogenesis Movement Ensemble here in Chicago, and we were really experimental. Like, I was more aligned with the performance art community, but Charlie Vernon was really great and was like, you know, you got, that whole Moming crew was really supportive of all kinds of diverse things, and Goat Island was doing some really cutting edge work, and there was a whole bunch of people at the Art Institute who were doing more performance-y stuff. And so I had that dance company for a number of years. Then I got into more into directing and working with the theater community, and then finally had kids and kind of got off the stage. So now I just raise a dancer. I don't. But I've worked with the Dance Center of Evanston a little bit, put some showcases together, things like that. But, you know, I was really sad when Moming died. I've been on the advisory council for the Dance Center of Columbia College, like when they moved. I was part of the first performance they did at the 13th Street site. I was enormously pregnant. Every night I would start having contractions during the show, and I'd walk off at the end of the night and hand my words to the stage manager in case I didn't make it to the next show. So, but yeah, I did crazy things. Like one of our shows, we rappelled off of Upper Wacker onto Lower Wacker. We did a performance through the fountains over by the Tribune building. There's a series of fountains that kind of go up a courtyard. And we had two people with bond cards inside their leotards in case we got arrested. They were called guerrilla shows. It was just like the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. You would call an answering machine between 6:30 and 7:30, and you would be given a meeting point. And you had to show up to the meeting point, and then we'd have a person with our company logo on a t-shirt carrying a boombox, and they would walk by you. And you had to figure out that you needed to follow them because you're given no directions. Because I had been advised by a lawyer that if there's no fiduciary relationship between you, then you cannot be held liable for whatever happens. So we would have these performances that were completely immersive experiences. There was no, like, did the show start when you called the phone? Did the show start when you got to the meeting point? Did the show start when we arrived as performers? My performers would get really freaked out because, like, there'd be things there'd be a schematic of, like, actions you're supposed to perform. But like, for example, in the Whacker Drive show, they didn't undo their ropes correctly on the hang, so we were doing rock climbing ropes, and they came down in doubles, and a couple people got stuck. And so they had to perform all the movements which were designed to be done on concrete while suspended in midair. And then there had to be this like problem solving of like, how do we get them up back over the railing before the cops come? So yeah, there was a lot of, in later years, performers would tell me that it was like the best improv training they ever had, because you had like a set of things, but you had all these other variables. So, and I used a lot of non-dancers or not traditional dancers in the work. So, and some of them went on to found their own companies and things like that. So it was really an exciting time to be part of it. And now the community is just so huge. So now I'm a critic and I write for Chicago Stage Standards, so I get to see and still witness what's happening.
Can you tell me a little bit about the coalition?
The Chicago Dance Coalition was a service organization that was founded to sort of serve the community by creating common calendars. There was some talk about maybe creating something like Pentacle in New York, or you're looking at other models. Chicago tended to be really siloed at that point, so there'd be like, there's the ballet people, and then there's the modern people, and then the educational people kind of overlap with that, but there was a dearth of funding sources specific to dance. It's been great to watch Driehaus sort of step into like what the Jerome Foundation does in Minneapolis. Chicago was part of the Suitcase Fund and David White Dance Theater Workshop, but it had a lot of trouble sort of becoming part of the like I kept getting upset. Pina Bausch kept going from one coast to the other. Sankai Juku never hit us. We just, we didn't have the same kind of presenter support all the time. I mean, that's slowly changing, but it's risky. Dance is only presented 1 or 2 weekends, so you really have to build an audience that will just go see whatever you've got, or has developed now, like groups that have developed a YouTube found, so it becomes more like a rock concert where like you're aware of it and you go see it, not because a presenter is telling you to go see it. But dance has always had the disability that it's not like you can build word of mouth. It's more itinerant than that. So you have to educate an audience. You have to build an audience. And so I think that was the beginning work of the Dance Coalition. Of course, the difficult thing with service organizations is, again, the Chicago funding community didn't really have a place to put that. It's gotten a lot better in terms of funding it, but if you're looking to your membership to support you, it's not like the Chamber of Commerce. You're not dealing with, so you have to provide real benefit to organizations, and that was a struggle. And I think that's why I was only there for like 2 years. But as it went on in time, it combined it with the music organizations because they had more larger organizations that could provide the support structure. I mean, funding a person on top of funding production is always, there's the rub. Service organizations all struggle with that. So, I mean, it was great when Bonnie Brooks moved to Chicago and brought all the Dance USA connections that she had, and I think that's like she was an unsung hero of the Chicago, just kind of putting us more. We've always been on the map for theater, but not the same kind of map for dance. And I think her work really helped. And of course, the people that the Dance Center brings in, because that's, they're not the blockbusters. They're not the people that everybody's heard of that you put at the Harris. These are the things that like an educational institution can really take a risk on because it's cutting edge, it's smaller, that kind of thing.
And how did writing about dance become part of practice?
One, I wanted to stay involved. I wanted to keep looking. I kind of wanted to keep seeing, and I kind of wanted to be. I wanted to be a part of the dance community. And also having to write about a non-verbal communication, I think works my intellect and my soul in a way that nothing else does. It is very hard to write about dance. And it's also very hard to write about non-narrative. Like, it's really easy to tell the story of a story ballet and, you know, like, you can talk a little bit about their technique and people may have a passing familiarity with it, but like when you start talking about use of weight or, you know, gravitational fields and, you know, or what the concerns of some of the contemporary dancers who incorporate social practice into their work, you really have to sit down and think, and you have to work at your writing craft. So I had taken a dance critics class in graduate school, and from some really amazing writers who made me read some amazing writers, and it changed my life about how you have to center yourself. You have to really be true to the movement, and you also can only speak from yourself. Like, I'm not a Clive Barnes. I'm not going to tell you where the field is going. I'm just going to tell you what I see.
So, having participated in the dance community in all of these various ways and for this amount of time, where has it been, I guess? What sort of evolution have you seen in the Chicago dance scene over the years?
Again, I think that in 1985, when I moved back, it's really hard to get a perspective when I was a young person, because I was just, you know, like taking the train down, and everybody you had to go to Lou Conte. I mean, that was a place, you know, and it was like a sweaty studio with 5 different rooms, and, you know, he had like some discount program or whatever, and then you had to go take the workshop at, you know, it was small. Like, there were 4 places. That was it. You could hit them all. You could see the whole season. Now it's so much bigger and broader, and I think it's more diverse. And I also see, you know, it's great to see what is considered a folk tradition. Like, even the Illinois Arts Council kind of had this weird, like, there's folk and ethnic traditions, and then there's dance. Like it's all dance. Like, it's a human language. It's like, it doesn't matter what you're speaking if you're moving, you know. So I think it's really grown that way. For a while, I danced with Alana Wallace and her Mixed Abilities Dance Company, and so that was like mind-blowing. That dancers don't necessarily, they can be in a wheelchair. And then I taught at Rehab Institute, and I was teaching quadriplegics dance. Like, what is that? You know, so I see a blurring of lines. I see a really healthy growth. It's not quite like it was where, like, there was a period where, like, dance was just, like, so popular, and, like, the sort of post-Dirty Dancing era, and it was, like, music videos and rock videos. And now I think it's actually better because it's more grassroots. I, of course, would love to see a dance requirement at schools. I think it's criminal that kids don't move and that kids don't get to express themselves with their bodies, because, like, adolescence is all about your body and, like, whose body is this and where did I get it from, and they're working it other ways. It's like, how do you be real with that? So I'd like to see more of that, but the community's gotten bigger. It has a depth, and you know, you have old dancers and you have really young dancers. It's not just one demographic, where it felt like when I was coming in, it was like there was just one band of people. You know, there were no old people in dance, because really it feels like it all started when Shirley Mordine started the Dance Center up on Sheridan. Like, there was no real dance scene before that wasn't like Polish polkas. You know, there was always a ballet tradition. I mean, you know, there was always, what's her name? Anna Pavlova came through. There was a historical dance, you know, like ballet tradition. And this was a huge place on the vaudeville circuit. And I guess I should, you know, what's his name? Bob Fosse, Amundsen High School. So, but that's kind of vaudeville.